My girlfriend has been hard to reach lately, always busy with various excuses. There's nothing I can do, so I went to wait for her downstairs at her apartment. As I watched her come down with her makeup done perfectly, wearing the outfit I had given her, she swayed her hips as she got into the passenger seat of a new sports car. The car was eye-catching, and the license plate looked familiar. Isn't that my brand new car that I just got? The license number was custom-made, the last 4 digits being her birthday, which I hadn't had the chance to tell her yet. I was stunned for a full 30 seconds as I watched the sports car speed away. I just stood there. My car and girlfriend had both left. Wow, cars nowadays are so smart. They can even take my girlfriend for a joyride? Ding! Story Shots reminds you to click the subscribe button at the bottom right corner to read the full novel. Lily Castro has been acting strange lately. She doesn't initiate texts, replies slowly, and when I ask to meet, she makes excuses about being busy. My buddy Giles Hopkins quipped, "Has your college girlfriend found a new sugar daddy?" No way, I don't believe it. Lily is very beautiful, but because of her poor family and a sick mother, she is inherently timid and low-key, at least in front of me. When I offered to support her studies, she insisted it was a loan and that she would definitely pay me back, saying it's hard for me to earn money and she wouldn't want to burden me. After all, in her eyes, I'm just a well-paid company administrative assistant. I also didn't dare to give her too much money, worried it might pressure her, but I provided enough for her expenses and bought her whatever she liked. Last week, she said her mother was hospitalized and urgently needed surgery, so she had to take on more part-time jobs and would be very busy. I immediately transferred her $50,000 and advised her not to rush, to focus on her studies, and that I would handle the money matters. Dear, I just got a part-time job in event hosting. I'll contact you another day. I had almost forgotten when we last met, and she rejected me again, going silent. It was a bit frustrating, and I took a long drag from my cigarette, crushing the butt in the ashtray. Across the table, the man who had just put away the contract paused and cautiously asked, "Mr. Robinson, is there anything else you need?" I put down my phone and looked at him. If Lily were here, she would be shocked. Isn't this the most despised leader of their dance team, Leader Anderson? Lily had complained to me more than once about how this leader exploited their performance fees and sexually harassed the girls in the dance team. There were several occasions when the lead role that should have been hers was forcibly given to another girl, and it was obvious why. This time, the dance team had a performance of Swan Lake, and I directly contacted Leader Anderson for sponsorship, with the condition that Lily would play the Black Swan. Of course, I kept everything from her. It's not that I didn't want to tell Lily about my worth. I was worried about her sensitive pride. What if it scared her? Or she felt that our status and identity weren't equal and wanted to break up? This was urgent, and I planned to tell her slowly after she graduated. I don't have anything to add. Just. Upon hearing this, Leader Anderson relaxed his shoulders and smiled broadly. "Mr. Robinson, don't worry, I understand," he said while sealing his lips with his fingers. "By the way, does your dance team have any event hosting part-time jobs coming up?" Leader Anderson's eyes darted around, looking very flattering. "Swan Lake is our graduation performance. We're putting all our energy into rehearsals. Besides, with your sponsorship, the dance team doesn't need to arrange outside part-time jobs." However, he glanced at my expression. You know how lively girls are nowadays. I don't know if they might be secretly taking jobs without telling me. Should I ask for you? I gestured for him to go ahead, and Leader Anderson cleverly stepped onto the balcony to make a call. While waiting, I casually browsed through Lily's social media account. Over the years, after being with me, she has become much more open and even shares food and gifts, surprisingly gaining over 1 million little fans. I've participated in most of the photos on her account. She spends my money but never shows my face. She said she didn't want people to know I was supporting her, as it would be like being kept, which wouldn't be good for either of our reputations. I understand. A young girl should cherish her image. I definitely don't want to be exposed in the media, but as I scrolled to her most recent post, I saw her looking tender in front of the camera, with her wrist resting on someone's shoulder, revealing an expensive watch. I instantly recognized that this watch wasn't a gift from me. With her mother in the hospital, she wouldn't have extra money to buy such things. At this point, Leader Anderson hung up the phone. "Mr. Robinson, the girls in the dance team aren't taking any private jobs. Lily, something's not right with you." Unable to contain my curiosity, I planned to wait for her outside her apartment after practice. Sure enough, Lily came out looking polished with the outfit I had given her, skipping happily out of the building. Just as I was about to greet her, I saw her turn and get into the passenger seat of a sports car. I couldn't see who was driving, so I raised my phone to take a picture and sent it to Giles. "Check it out." The car was the latest model, a limited edition in the city. Giles could easily find out who the owner was. I wanted to see which jerk was trying to steal my girl, but as the camera zoomed in on the license plate, I was stunned. Giles' message came in. "Bro, what's going on? Why are you checking your own car?" Of course, it's the custom license plate I made, with the last 4 digits being Lily's birthday. The sports car roared to life, and I was left stunned for a full 30 seconds as I watched my new car speed away. I just stood there. My car and girlfriend had both left. Wow, now cars are so intelligent. They can even take my girlfriend for a joyride? The car has been parked in my garage at home. I could only go back and ask what was going on. As I walked through the door, I saw my parents tinkering with plants in the garden. They glanced at me casually and continued their work, asking, "Unexpected guest, is the company short on money?" After graduation, I didn't take over my dad's business. He didn't push me either, saying he wanted to leave me wealth, not hardship, and let me do whatever I wanted. There was almost no information about me in the media. I started my own new energy company, and after 3 years of ups and downs, thanks to my family's financial support, I gradually got on the right track. When I got busy, I rarely went home to see my parents, but they understood. Normally, I would definitely cling to them to make them happy, and maybe I could even trick my dad into investing more in my company. But today, I wasn't in the mood. I grabbed a pair of large scissors and snipped off a leaf. "Who did you lend my new car to?" "Ancestor." My dad snatched the scissors away, looking at his beloved money tree with concern. "It's just a sports car. Are you really going to take it out on my plant? Besides, we have plenty of cars at home. Who would want to borrow your little stool?" I leaned in, squinting, and asked him, "You better confess. Did you take my car to the art school this afternoon to pick up a female college student?" "Get lost." He angrily shoved the scissors into the soil, hands on hips, and shouted, "If you need money, just say so. Don't tarnish my reputation. In this lifetime, I only have your mom as a woman." Saying that, he straightened up and looked at my mom. I believe him. My dad's startup funds came from my mom's dowry, and he has always respected her, even taking her surname. He didn't move the new sports car. Could it really be that the new car is self-driving? I snatched my mom's cup, irritably gulping down a large sip of tea, and told them about seeing my sports car at the art school today. My mom suddenly clapped her hands. "I know who drove your car." "Who?" "Old Morrison. Do you remember the grandson of the 6th master from your village? The guy who graduated and asked you to arrange a job for him. Bernie Morrison. He came last month, and you were busy changing flower pots that day, so you didn't pay him any mind. I arranged for him to work in the company's car fleet first. It's good to know his background. He can drive for Preston in the future. I told him to get familiar with Preston's cars and maintain them as needed. If he needs money, he can withdraw it from Mr. Lawson in finance. Letting him drive is also to get him familiar with the road conditions quickly. I see someone from Morrison Village. My dad wasn't happy to hear this. Does he really need to familiarize himself with the road conditions by driving a sports car? Tell him to come back. Let him drive that Land Rover in the garage first. Let's leave it like this for today. My mom arranged for the maid to prepare dinner. Preston is finally back, so let's have a quiet meal. Tomorrow, let Bernie Morrison come to change cars. I figured out the driver situation, but what was Lily Castro doing in Bernie Morrison's car? Was she lying to me? After dinner, I returned to my apartment. Lying on my bed, unable to figure it out. Could it be that I misunderstood Lily Castro? Were she and Bernie Morrison old acquaintances? Thinking of this made me feel a bit guilty towards Bernie Morrison. I had labeled him as a wall breaker without even meeting him. I felt even more guilty towards Lily Castro. How could I think of her that way? I needed to call her. Maybe she was facing some difficulties she couldn't tell me about. Just right, she had also discovered the new car, so I could take this opportunity to reveal my identity to her. It would also make it easier for me to give her money for her mom's medical treatment. The phone rang for a long time before Lily Castro's voice finally came through, with loud background music. "Hello, dear. We just finished work, and my sisters said we should celebrate." Before I could ask, Lily Castro smoothly explained everything. "Where are you? I'll come pick you up." "No need. After we finish, I'm going back to the apartment with my teammates." "Bye." She didn't stutter at all. If it weren't for Captain Anderson saying they didn't have any work, I would have almost believed her. My heart felt cold. After hanging up, I opened the smart location app for the new car. When I had installed this system, I had scolded Giles Hopkins for being greedy, recommending expensive and useless things. I didn't expect to use it so soon. The location showed the sports car was at a club. I immediately rushed to the club. A few bills helped the waiter find my target. Through the narrow glass of the private room, I saw Lily Castro dancing on the table, her coat already off, and her bustier barely covering her upper body. While dancing, she did the splits, leaning her upper body towards a man. The man's eyes were fixed on Lily Castro's bustier, which was about to pop out, saliva practically dripping from his mouth. He quickly pulled out several bills and stuffed them into Lily Castro's cleavage, leaning down to get closer. I kicked the private room door open. "Shut up!" My angry shout stunned everyone in the room, and they all turned to look at me. The couple remained in their kissing pose, and Lily Castro still had a lingering charm in her eyes. The man was none other than Bernie Morrison, the grandson of the sixth master from my mom's phone, who would be my driver in the future. Lily Castro was momentarily stunned, hurriedly pulling her legs off the table, adjusting her bustier, and discreetly stuffing the money inside. The dim lighting in the private room made her makeup look alluring. As I got closer, a beam of green light was shining on her face, creating an indescribably eerie and disgusting scene. "Preston, who sent you here? Look at that." She even shouted my full name at me. Caught in the act, she was getting defensive. The gentle Lily Castro, who used to call me dear and cried about her mom being hospitalized, who made me feel soft-hearted, was nowhere to be found. In front of everyone, her shout of "Preston" was cold and heartless. I snorted coldly, hands in my pockets, looking at her with disdain. "What? Now that you have a sugar daddy, you can't even call me dear anymore?" Lily Castro's face turned pale, a flicker of disgust flashing in her eyes, but it quickly transformed into a look of grievance as she glanced at the man beside her. The man caught her enchanting gaze and sprang up from the sofa as if he had taken a stimulant. "Who are you?" "I'm Lily's rich daddy." "What, you don't like it?" "Ugh." I drew in a sharp breath, looking down at Bernie Morrison, who was a head shorter than me. "You'll soon find out who I am. I really don't respect you because you have no right to challenge me." "Damn!" With a clatter, a few people stood up. Where did this madman come from, daring to mess with our Mr. Morrison? "Don't you know the Morrison Group? He's the young master of the Morrison family. This private room is booked by the group. All expenses are accounted for. A night costs thousands. You'd be scared to hear it. Be smart and get lost quickly. Don't ruin our young master's fun." The other sycophants in the room, busy indulging themselves, rushed to speak up. "What kind of situation is this?" So it turns out Bernie Morrison is using the Morrison family's name, spending my money, driving my car, and chasing my girl? Fury boiling in me, I glared at Bernie. "With a grandson like you in the Morrison family, your ancestors would crawl out of their graves to scratch you. Today, I'll teach you a lesson on behalf of your ancestors." Saying this, I threw a punch that landed squarely on his nose. "Ah!" I heard Lily Castro gasp in shock behind me. Bernie covered his nose and stumbled back a few steps before crashing to the ground. I walked over, kicked him down, and grabbed a bottle of liquor from the table, pouring whatever I could find. Red, beer, foreign, haphazardly onto his face. "I'll make sure you drink enough." Bernie flailed his arms, trying to shout, but immediately choked on the alcohol, coughing more and more violently. "A cough, cough, a cough." He writhed on the ground like a pig scalded by boiling water. Not a drop of the liquor went to waste. It was a free head wash. "If you have the guts, kill me. Otherwise, I'll call my dad to beat you up." I kicked him hard. "Tell your dad to come. I'll be waiting." Behind me, I heard rustling as someone tried to approach, but I turned and glared, making them freeze in place, my angry gaze enough to kill. Bernie's drinking buddies, whom he just met, weren't exactly loyal either. They stood to the side, avoiding my gaze. Lily leaned against the wall, trembling in fear, a corner of her money peeking out from her bag. I walked over, snatched the money, and threw it on the ground, grabbing my coat and tossing it into her arms. "Put on your clothes and come with me." She clutched the coat, her eyes flickering, glancing at me and then at Bernie on the ground, biting her lip before unexpectedly slapping me across the face. Smack! I was truly stunned. It was the first time I'd ever been slapped in the face, and by a woman at that. "If you want to leave, go by yourself." She had a resolute look of someone ready to face death. "What right do you have to control me? Just because you're a loser doesn't mean you can stop me from pursuing happiness. Old Morrison likes me far more generously than you do. 100 times better." Saying this, she bent down to pick up the scattered bills on the ground. I looked down at her collecting the money, unwilling to back down, and asked again, "Are you short on cash? You can tell me. I'm your boyfriend." She stood up, her face full of disdain. "With what little you give me, what can I buy? I'm embarrassed to say I have a boyfriend. Do you know how much money my teammates spend every month? I'm the only one who can't afford to buy an extra piece of clothing. If I ask you for money, I'd have to waste my tears crying over it. It's exhausting." "So you're saying your mom's illness is fake? What else could it be?" "My mom died a long time ago. I was eyeing a limited edition set, and after crying to you for half a day, you only gave me $50,000. Preston Robinson, you're too stingy." A sharp pain shot through my chest, and my heart felt dead. I didn't even know how I got home, stumbling in and collapsing onto the bed. In a daze, I heard someone banging on the door. Looking at my phone, it was 7 in the morning. When I opened the door, Bernie stood there fuming, with his dad blocking my doorway. Over his shoulder, I exchanged a knowing glance with his dad, who didn't seem to notice at all. "It's him. He hit me last night, pouring all that expensive liquor over my head and wasting the group's money. And then he insulted you, saying he wasn't afraid of you and was waiting for you to settle accounts with him. Isn't that too arrogant?" "Indeed arrogant. That's just like my son." My dad chuckled, suddenly kicking Bernie in the knee. "But nobody is as arrogant as you." Bernie, caught off guard, collapsed to his knees before me, dumbfounded, his gaze darting between my dad and me. "Son? That's impossible. He doesn't even have the surname Morrison. His name is Preston Robinson. Who said a son must have the same surname as his father? Do you want to manage this?" Saying this, he grabbed Bernie by the collar and threw him into the room. "Get in there. Don't embarrass yourself here." My dad and I settled onto the sofa, watching Bernie, a pile of mud before us. "Speak up. Tell us everything without missing a word." Bernie swallowed hard and began to explain. "I drove out to familiarize myself with the road conditions, accidentally ending up at the art school based on the navigation in the car, almost hitting a female student. I took her to the hospital and left my number. Later on, trust me, I only said I was a Morrison working at the Morrison Group, nothing else. But Lily Castro took me for old Morrison's grandson, so I didn't correct her. Auntie said I could take money from the finance department, and they told me which expenses could be accounted for, so I took Lily out a few times for dates, meals, bought some things. We hadn't slept together. Really? We were supposed to book a room last night. He secretly glanced at me, afraid I would hit him again. All right, he managed to win over Lily Castro a few times. It seems he really is more generous than I am. Looking at the trembling Bernie Morrison, I suddenly laughed. Mr. Morrison, you're quite something, managing to pull off a con like that. You must be enjoying yourself these days. Huh. How does it feel to be a young master? Is it particularly addictive? No, no, no. Bernie shook his head repeatedly, crawling to my feet. Preston, no, young master. I really didn't know she was your girl. I'll call her right now and tell her you are the real young master. I'm just a nobody. Please let me go, all right? As he spoke, he fumbled to dial the phone. Hold on. Bernie may be a fake young master, but it also means Lily might meet another real young master and leave me like that, right? Don't tell her. It won't be fun if we clear things up now. Bernie looked at me with a puzzled expression, mouth agape. Continue your date with Mr. Morrison. In a few days, there's a banquet at home. You can bring her then. Huh? Huh what? My dad slammed the table. You've spent at least 100,000 lately. Should I call your grandpa for the funds? No. If my grandpa finds out, he'll never let me back to the city to work again. Bernie clung to my leg, pleading, Young master, from now on, whatever you say goes. I'll do whatever you point me to. I'll be loyal to you for life. Just don't send me back to the village. After Bernie left, looking dejected, my dad patted my shoulder. Good job, son. 100,000 for a little brother. But you said there's a banquet at home. How come I didn't know? I shot him a sideways glance. Still pretending? My little company is about to be under the Morrison name. You promised not to interfere, but you still can't escape your grasp. My dad chuckled. Your mom and I just want to see you work less hard. Acquiring it is perfect for expanding the Morrison Group's business. The management team is already established, so you won't have to work like a dog every day. In fact, I had built the company up beyond my dad's expectations, but he knew well the hardships of starting a business and didn't want me to follow in his footsteps. He and my mom decided to acquire my company so I could have time to date and give them grandkids. I sent the invitation for the banquet to Giles Hopkins in advance. He would notify the other brothers for me. Giles replied instantly with a few grinning emojis, saying the brothers would all arrive on time. I knew it. They were all wealthy young masters who loved drama, and they were even more excited than I was to hear about the big show. On the day of the banquet, I stood at the entrance to greet guests. From a distance, I saw Lily Castro getting out of the car with Bernie. She was truly beautiful, drawing many gazes as soon as she stepped out. With years of stage experience, she controlled her expressions well, gracefully accepting everyone's attention. The fitted dress hugged her waist perfectly, the low-cut design revealing enticing expanses of fair skin, her hair casually styled up, and a pair of long, platinum diamond earrings dangling elegantly by her neck. But no amount of luxurious adornment could hide her greedy gaze. Her eyes scanned the grand villa and expansive garden, fixating on the wealthy guests, and even the handsome waiters passing by caught her attention, making her click her tongue in delight. She actually treated me like a doorman, barely pausing to glance my way. Giles stood behind me, chuckling and patting my shoulder in sympathy. All right, everyone's here. Close the door and let the show begin. I saw my parents exaggeratedly grinning as they approached the two. You finally made it! Their impatience was evident, and their acting was really subpar. Looking at Bernie, he smiled awkwardly, looking worse than if he were crying. Despite wearing a designer suit, he looked like a thief, bowing and scraping to my parents. In comparison, Lily was much more poised. But sadly, her face was filled with flattery as she attempted to take my dad's arm. My dad shook her off forcefully, and she stumbled, almost falling. Once steady, she looked up and saw me, her expression turning fierce, all her displeasure finding an outlet. She quickly dragged me to a corner, growling, "You think you're special? This is a place you should be at. What's wrong with this place?" I flicked my wrinkled sleeve, It's my home. Why can't I come? Lily paused, sizing me up, snorting disdainfully. Preston, it's one thing to be broke, but being stupid is just ridiculous. Your home? If you're going to brag, at least change your address first. All right? While no one can call you out, you better scram and not embarrass yourself here. If you get that rented suit dirty, you won't get your deposit back. With that, she shot me a contemptuous glance and turned to find Bernie, her expression immediately shifting back to one of beauty and gentleness. No wonder she was chosen as the lead for the graduation play. I gritted my teeth in silence. How did I end up with such a lowly woman? Lily entered among the guests, eagerly trying to cozy up to them, not caring if she was rejected or disliked, insisting on exchanging contact information. Suddenly, someone patted my shoulder, and I realized my mom had come up beside me without me noticing. What are you planning to do? Don't waste time. Mr. Lawson from the investment company is here with the financing contract. I pointed my chin towards Lily Castro. Don't rush. I won't be speaking on stage for a while. That will be the fun part. My mom sighed. Enough already. It's not worth it. I opened Lily Castro's social media account, and it had been updated. Her beautiful selfies featured a villa panorama, a garden full of luxury cars, and a few shots of desserts where the golden letters of Morrison Group shone brightly. The comments were filled with little fans exclaiming, "Wow! Is this what a wealthy family looks like? Sister is about to marry into a rich family. Congratulations in advance. Sister, is this the legendary Morrison acquisition banquet? I heard the investment big shots are here with contracts. What's so surprising about that? The young master has played enough and is selling to us. With the Morrison backing, the investment big shots will be scrambling to throw in their money. Sister, take me with you." Some netizens with good math skills started calculating. It's said that the old man left wealth but not hard work. The young master isn't taking over, but his fortune is already in the billions. Sold the company, and now just for fun. Envious. Sister. Oh no, young mistress. Lily Castro, who was nearby scrolling through her account, was beaming as if she were already Mrs. Morrison. She had managed this account for a long time, always maintaining a pure and elegant image of a high-quality lifestyle. Since that's the case, let's bring down the goddess image today. Let the fans see what she's really like inside. I handed my phone to a brother beside me, instructing him to start the live stream and maintain the best shooting angle with Lily Castro. Everything was ready. I straightened my suit and gave Giles Hopkins a glance. Giles understood and, shaking his wine glass, walked over to Bernie Morrison, exchanging some polite words before turning to Lily Castro. "Hey, didn't you cry and shout that you wanted to be with Preston Robinson's woman? Here's the new rich daddy." He exaggeratedly pointed at her arm linked with Bernie Morrison, wearing a teasing expression. Giles' voice was loud enough that everyone nearby could hear, turning their heads with shining eyes. The show had finally begun. Lily Castro nervously fixed her hair. "Sorry, you must have mistaken me." "Not at all." Giles raised his voice. "I have a keen eye, especially for beautiful women. I never forget." People around started to point and make harsh comments, shouting words like "public bus," "looking for a sugar daddy," and "gold digger." Lily Castro, holding her dress, clenched her fist and trembled. Unfortunately, all the guests present were of considerable worth. She maintained her composure, unable to confront everyone, and forced herself to endure. She stole a glance at Bernie Morrison, hoping he would help clear her name. Sadly, the man was too busy enjoying dessert, not even lifting his head or meeting her gaze. Seeing Lily Castro in trouble, I decided to add fuel to the fire. I stepped in front of her. "Oh, how could you be mistaken? Isn't this Ms. Castro?" I deliberately emphasized the Ms. "You slapped me. My face still hurts." As soon as the words left my mouth, there was a buzz around us. To slap me and still stand here, Lily Castro was the first. Her face turned pale and then flushed, struggling to maintain her dignity. She weakly retorted, I don't understand what you're saying. Don't understand? I looked at Bernie Morrison, who had cake all over his face. Mr. Morrison, do you remember this incident? Ah. Bernie Morrison quickly looked up, his cheeks stuffed, meeting my meaningful gaze, and hurriedly swallowed a few times. I remember. This woman slapped Mr. Robinson. I saw it. His tone was firm and unquestionable. To be more convincing, he clapped his hands together. Smack! That slap was super loud. Lily Castro couldn't believe it, staring at Bernie Morrison in shock, subtly tugging at him. Bernie, have you had too much to drink? I didn't. Mr. Morrison. I raised my hand to interrupt Lily Castro. By the way, how did you two end up together? Is there a story we don't know? Why don't you share it with everyone? Yeah, what's the story? Tell us. Giles was fanning the flames beside us and even pulled over a chair for me to sit. Lily Castro scanned the surroundings, steadying her emotions before speaking calmly, still maintaining her haughty demeanor. My story with Bernie is very romantic. It was love at first sight. It's like this. I was driving Mr. Robinson's car and knew the road conditions. Who knew she suddenly jumped out, claiming I scratched her. On the way to the hospital, she kept asking me how much my car was and where I worked. I told her I was Morrison, working at the Morrison Group, and she immediately calmed down, saying we didn't need to go to the hospital and even added me on the phone. Since then, she actively pursued me, and I didn't hold back. A woman who comes knocking at your door is a steal. Lily Castro's romantic tale of love at first sight was interrupted by Bernie Morrison, turning into a vulgar case of a gold-digging woman throwing herself at him. There was no way around it. Bernie Morrison was doing me a favor by not pursuing the $100,000 and not telling his grandfather. Even if I asked him to slap Lily Castro, he could still manage it. Bernie, how can you describe our relationship like that? It's not like that. Everyone, let me explain. Sigh. The sound of crickets filled the air. Lily Castro's heart was shattered as she clutched her chest in pain, gazing at Bernie Morrison, resembling a pure-hearted girl who was toyed with by a powerful man yet still believed in love. Was she acting so well that she even convinced herself? Mr. Robinson. Bernie Morrison pointed at Lily Castro. Really, it's this shameless woman who seduced me. I just wanted to have some fun, but I didn't expect her to have so many tricks up her sleeve. His finger nearly poked Lily's nose, full of urgency. If Lily couldn't sense something was off at this moment, she might as well have wasted her time. But she misunderstood that Bernie had drunk too much and shook his shoulder hard, trying to wake him up. Bernie, have you had too much to drink? Look clearly. Preston is just a little errand boy. Why are you afraid of him? Bernie forcefully shook off her grip, stepping back as if to distance himself, clearly disgusted. Everyone around knew my identity and looked at Lily as if she were a fool. Is this beauty out of her mind? Bernie didn't dare to lie, desperately avoiding her grasp, glaring at Lily with hostility. Tears suddenly welled up in Lily's eyes as she turned to me, looking pitiful enough to break anyone's heart. I was completely blinded by her tearful gaze. Preston, why bother? We agreed to part ways happily. Do you really have to make this so ugly? Bernie is kind-hearted. He never let me tell you about our relationship, fearing you'd do something extreme. Now it seems I must clarify some things. Lily resolutely declared. Preston, it's completely over between us. Don't disturb me and Bernie anymore. She was acting so well, biting her lip, both pure and fierce. Any man present who didn't know the truth would be tempted to play the hero and save the beauty. You're just upset, and I won't hold it against you, but I'll make it clear. I love Bernie, and I will never leave him in this lifetime. Good. I couldn't help but clap in appreciation. It was so moving. If her eyes hadn't stolen a glance at Bernie's reaction while she made that vow, it would have been perfect. She should have won an Oscar. Remember your words. I smiled as I stood up. I will certainly let you have your wish. Bernie shuddered beside me. At that moment, my dad began to speak into the microphone at the front. Dear guests, thank you all for coming to our humble abode. And a special thanks to the investment tycoon for favoring my son. Today, my son's company is merging with the group, and our family fund is officially starting. From now on, our family of 3 will say goodbye to the hustle and bustle and embark on a journey of leisure. At this point, I want to express a wish to hold my grandson soon. Everyone burst into laughter, and Lily blushed, pretending to be shy, her eyes sparkling. Son Preston, come up and say a few words to thank the uncles and aunts for their kindness. I stepped onto the stage and caught sight of Lily's body suddenly trembling, as if electrocuted, before she plopped down into a chair, gasping for air. In her shocked and desperate gaze, I took the microphone from my dad. Dear guests, hello? I'm Bernie Morrison's young master, Preston, and I'm the real deal. The audience erupted in laughter. After some small talk and expressions of gratitude, I stepped down to accept everyone's congratulations, but my gaze was always on Lily. The information was overwhelming. She was struggling to process it all. If it weren't for the chair supporting her, she would have collapsed like a rag doll. Yes, this was the scene I wanted to see the most, better than the investment contract from the tycoon. After mingling around, I went to the garden to catch my breath, knowing Lily would sneak out after me. Nearby, my brother was also following with his phone raised. Darling, a sweet voice sent chills down my back. I turned around, raising an eyebrow. Ms. Castro, who are you calling? Lily's face turned pale as she steeled herself against my taunts, her fists clenched tightly at her sides. Darling, don't be like this. Let's talk properly. She leaned forward as she spoke. Stop! I raised my hand to stop her from lunging at me. Your darling is in there eating dessert. I have nothing to say to you. The cool breeze in the garden made Lily shiver, her bare shoulders exposed, unable to withstand it, rubbing her arms as her lips trembled, looking utterly pitiful. Darling, why didn't you tell me sooner about being the young master of the Morrison family? Do we not even have the most basic trust between us? Look at her ability to twist the truth. It's truly impressive. Ms. Castro, have you really never thought about it? If I were just some errand boy making a pile of money to support you, would I have robbed a bank or printed counterfeit money? Think a little. You're just being self-righteous, labeling me as an errand boy. Besides, what does my identity have to do with you? Didn't you say you'd never leave Bernie in this lifetime? Does it matter if he's a young master? Upon hearing this, tears streamed down Lily's face, fully immersed in her role, not forgetting to pose and show off her sexy collarbone. Darling, I've always needed you. It's all Bernie's fault. He claims to be the young master of the Morrison family and forced me to date him. If I didn't agree, he said he would use his connections to ruin you. For you, I can sacrifice everything, even if it means enduring humiliation. As she spoke, she covered her heart and tugged down her dress, revealing the tantalizing curves beneath. Wow, in broad daylight, this bold woman really knows no shame. Seeing my gaze wandering, she took a step closer, wrapping her arm around my neck. Darling, you're breaking your promise. You said you would love me forever. But look at you. I chuckled, pressing my fist against her waist to keep her at bay, and leaned in to whisper in her ear. Ms. Castro, your acting skills are impressive. I won't cut a second from the live stream. Instantly, Lily Castro stiffened, her eyes wide. What do you mean? I pushed her arm away and pointed to my friends. Look, your fans are watching. Come on, smile. This live stream will get you thousands of new followers. Lily Castro couldn't manage a smile anymore. Her image as a pure beauty crumbled, with comments like, shameless, two-timer, and gold digger flooding the live stream. When Lily saw her face appear on the screen, she immediately covered her face and screamed, rushing out of the garden. Some in the comments cursed her for bringing this upon herself, saying she deserved it. Others defended her, arguing that wanting a better life isn't wrong, and blamed me for hiding my identity. Even more openly criticized the wealthy, claiming this was just another rich person's game. I remained indifferent to the attacks, but Giles Hopkins was furious, grabbing my phone and shouting, "What nonsense is this? Do rich people not deserve dignity? Should they just let themselves be deceived? Want to live well? Then take the right path. What's the difference between selling your looks and being a prostitute? If you're not sincere, you won't get a good outcome." My buddy never deceived her. She's just not self-respecting and is suffering the consequences. After venting, he pointed and ended the live stream, exclaiming, "What the hell?" With a loud bang, he tossed the phone into the decorative pond. I wanted to stop him, but it was too late. Forget it, the show was over for now, and I had serious matters to attend to. In the hall, Bernie Morrison was standing with his head down, and when he saw me, he hurried forward. "Sir, I've done everything you asked. You won't tell my grandfather, right? All right, just stay with the convoy. When you pay off your debts, you can go back home." A debt of 100,000, slowly deducted, enough for him to stay in the city for 10 years. Of course, with him as a precedent, my parents no longer took care of the relatives back home. Sometimes it's just a matter of urgent help, not a lifeline. Bernie sighed, seemingly wanting to say more, but I ignored him and walked straight to my study. Even though it was our family group's merger, every legal document had to be perfect, not to mention the many financing and equity distribution documents that also needed to be signed, no room for error. After completing all the merger and financing processes, 3 months had already passed. During that time, team leader Anderson called me, nervously saying, "Mr. Robinson, about the dance team sponsorship. The sponsorship stays the same." I signed documents while on speakerphone. However, the lead role of the Black Swan. Understood. Team leader Anderson immediately assured, "Lily Castro has been dismissed. She's not suited to play a swan. A toad would be more fitting. Talking to smart people is truly efficient." With nowhere to go after leaving school, the shameless Lily Castro came looking for me. The security at the villa community recognized her and waved a steel fork to drive her away. She cried and called me at the gate. "I'm sorry, darling. Do you need me to die before you'll forgive me? If I die, you'll regret it. You'll lose someone who truly loves you. If I die, you'll face retribution. I'll go die right now." I tossed the phone aside, focusing on eating and studying. After a long time, she shouted on the other end, Hey, darling, are you listening?" I picked up the phone. "Still alive? Do you want me to book you a diamond-encrusted coffin?" "Robinson, you bastard." Lily Castro wouldn't actually die. Someone who loves themselves and enjoys life wouldn't willingly give it up. So when I saw her again, with her heavily made-up face, I wasn't surprised at all. That night, after finishing a gathering with Giles and a few friends at the club, I saw Lily Castro arguing with a man as we left the hall. "Mr. Castro, you promised me 50,000 a month. You can't just walk away." The man shook her off. "Get lost. With your kind of behavior, you're not worth 50,000. I was just curious about what it's like to be with a rich man's woman." "Don't cling to me." Lily lunged at him again. "Mr. Castro, I'm a college student, part of the dance team. I'm not worse than those bar girls you hang out with. Are you blind?" The man raised his hand and slapped her. Lily spun around from the force and fell to the ground, immediately wailing, her tears and snot smearing her face, her cheap makeup running down. "Dare to insult me? I'll kill you. How dare you mention being a college student? Do you want me to remind you why you were expelled? Want me to tell everyone your dirty little secrets?" Effed. The man spat at her, pulled out a tissue to wipe his hands, crumpled it, and threw it at Lily's face. "Did you think you could play both sides without consequences? Lily Castro, when you play around, you'll have to pay the price eventually." Lily Castro sat on the ground, unable to get up, covering her face and crying bitterly, while not forgetting to pull up her skirt, revealing her dry thighs that hadn't been cared for in a long time. Unfortunately, no one cared. Beauty fades and love diminishes. Only through virtue and morality can relationships last through the ages. She would never understand this in her lifetime. Giles Hopkins nudged me. "Is that Lily Castro?" "Who is Lily Castro?" I don't know her. Just watching the commotion. Some people aren't worth remembering.